Usually when controller manufacturers attempt to make computer peripherals such as keyboards, mice, and headsets, they're super stinky. Generally, they're a rebranding, or if they do design it in-house, it's usually pretty lackluster in the feature set. However, NYXI is in a little bit of a different boat. They're in the same ocean as what I just mentioned, but they're floating around in a little bit different of a dilapidated raft because they do have a track record or history with Nintendo accessories, so GameCube, Switch accessories, but I'm curious how that's going to transfer over to PC peripherals such as keyboards and mice, which we'll find out today with their first clickety-clackety type product. And when I saw the Striker, what really had me lock on with my crosshairs was the fact that it does have a couple of the key features that I look for when I'm shopping for a keyboard, that being hot swappable switches, so that way if I don't like the stockers, I don't have to buy a brand new keyboard. Pop in some new Johnnies. Johnny be goods. Triple mode connectivity, meaning wired obviously, but then also Bluetooth and a dongle, a certain degree of customization with the manufacturer recommended software app, and then some kind of a gasket structure where this thing isn't just a chunk of plastic, it's actually got some foam, some layers to that sucker to where when you press it down, the whole keyboard is in sliding in like the portal to Narnia. You know, everything feels rigid, solid, thunky, like there is some chassis structural rigidity there, like you get with a custom keyboard that you put together from a kit or from individual parts. I'm not expecting the same degree of badassery on a $100 keyboard. I do recommend if you're gonna pick the sucker up to buy it on Amazon, you just go ahead and be patient. It'll come back in stock for you. Reason being, I do have a link to the NYXI website. However, I've heard varying reports on shipping times, and also this is a note to the company, these always running promotions are kind of a bad look, and high resolution photos aside, there's a certain vibe of jankage that I just can't put my thumb on that makes me personally not want to buy controllers from this website, so I'm not going to recommend to my audience that they do something that I would not. If AK-40 Kevin careens off a bridge, are you gonna 360 swan dive off that bitch too? No, none of us are doing that because it seems silly, just like it seems like the safe place to buy something like this would be a third-party vendor where you have a layer of customer support, whether that be Walmart, Amazon, somewhere where you, if you get shafted by Nyxi, NYXI, you can knock on Jeff Bezos's door and be like, hey man, they ripped me off. Would you mind handling this return for me? And from a cosmetic note, this is the exact blue of the previous Nyxi controllers that I have reviewed on the channel, such as the HYPR Pro. A quick summary of the key notable features, price, platform, all that good stuff. This is a $100 is currently sold out at Amazon, which is the only other third-party vendor that I've seen it sold at. I'll have both the manufacturer's listing and the Amazon product listing linked in the description below. This keyboard does have hot swappable switches. They only come in reds, which are linears. It does not tell you what manufacturer these are. Gateron, Kales. It just says red, which usually with most companies does correlate to being linears, and that's the only option, which we'll talk about later. That's kind of unfortunate. They are hot swappable. When I say the only option, I mean the only switch choice out of the box. This sports a gasket structure for a soft and bouncy touch, which the manufacturer is claiming is some kind of a positive. You don't need to feel like you're fingering a jar of mayonnaise to not shatter your fingers when typing. You can have a fine balance between typing comfort for productivity, not damn near half an inch of sag into the board, which we'll talk about later during the base and build quality section. The key notable feature of this board, other than its purple color that looks like an old GameCube controller, take it, leave it, love it, hate it, that's up to you, is this screen in the top right, which I'm just gonna get it right out of the way right up front, has very limited functionality. It doesn't look good, it doesn't really function well, to the point where I recommend if you are going wireless with Bluetooth or the dongle, you just disable it to save battery life. It's also in a funky spot where they could have had better media controls, knobs, dials, and buttons for music control instead of this little green niblet, which we'll talk about later. It's terrible. But some things I do like about the keyboard, it has triple mode connectivity, which isn't really out of the ordinary for this price point, that being wired. Bluetooth doesn't mention what Bluetooth technology that is. It could be 3.0 for all we know, but then a 2.4 gigahertz dongle. This does have RGB lighting, although it's implemented quite assfully. We'll talk about it later. This is a full-size 97 key layout with in-key rollover, but it didn't function like the Wooting and Razer keyboards, which have true in-key rollover where you can just hold down A or D in order to tap strafe. You don't really need to spam or lift your finger off the next key in order to, you know, tap strafe on somebody with your keyboard. You can just hold down one key and kind of like boop, boop, kind of roll their ankle a little bit. The in-key rollover on this Nyxi did not work like that. at all, which is how in-key rollover is supposed to work. Like the Wooting keyboards are very famous for that, where you can actually kind of break the in-game physics a little bit with the strafing.
HVT is taking fire. Keep the package safe. They got our HVT.
He's trying to protect people that just stay still.
Their HVT.
I'm not going to waste your time. To get it out of the way in the summary, I do not recommend this keyboard for gaming whatsoever. Even if you swap the switches, there is so much flex, so much sink in with that gasket design, and there's not really a whole lot you can do for that. You can layer up foam, but that's not the issue. It's already acoustically fine. The feeling of it just being so squishy and having so much sag, so much chassis flex is pretty absurd, and there are cheaper keyboards that don't have that. Also, the lack of switch choices only being linears. It really comes down to, do you like the styling of this board, the way it looks? Does it fit your purple theme setup? And are you going to do something cool with that dot matrix display? Quick disclaimer to my audience, the Stallions and Stallionettes. This product was sent by NYXI for review like 3 months ago, so thank you very much for your patience. This is an honest, comprehensive review, not sponsored, have not been paid to say or not say anything about it. The company doesn't get an early preview. Like I mentioned, they have no idea when I'm even posting this video. They'll find out when it goes live, when you watch it. And as always, if there's any cons, shortcomings, or areas of improvement, you are going to hear about it, so these companies make better products over time, or in this case, maybe stick to their core products, which is controllers. Not saying it's how the video is going to turn out, but you know. As for the packaging and included accessories, it is a box inside of a box style situation. You do have a cap puller as well as a switch yanker, 2-in-1 tool, and then a very impressive breakaway style coiled cable. That was very impressive. It's also color matched very well. Little instruction manual, good font, very descriptive. English is the primary language. And don't forget, you have your 2.4 gigahertz dongle magnetized in the back of the keyboard. My initial impressions when it comes to perceived build quality are not great, and that comes down to the plastics used. The keyboard has a decent weight to it, to where it doesn't feel cheap and flimsy, but it's not freakishly heavy if you're taking it on the go either, which you might very well, considering it is Bluetooth and does have a dongle. But the fact is, they go with that gasket design, which, as you can see, it sinks in extremely far, even for a stock regular Dell $5 bulk, got it with my used family computer keyboard. They usually don't sink in this far, so that's pretty crazy. And the manufacturer's touting that this is to reduce fatigue when typing. It doesn't need to squish in like you're typing on a jar of mayonnaise for you not to snap your fingers when typing. The volume dial scroll wheel is the cheapest, worst thing I have ever felt my entire life. It doesn't have much resistance, and it just feels so disconnected from everything else on this keyboard. There's also a shitload of micro scratches all over that gloss plastic at the top where it says Striker 1-up. I hate this top section. I think it looks incredibly tacky and cheap. Also, the yellow arrow buttons, don't really like that color pop. From a functionality standpoint, don't like the fact that you have to put it into 2.4 G mode, and then there's also an on-off switch on the side. The screen is so limited in its functionality that I just recommend turning it off if you're going wireless to save battery life, or if you're wired, turn it off because it's disorienting and ugly. Cosmetically, I am not a huge fan of this colorway. That comes down to personal preference. Maybe you were a huge fan of that plum purple GameCube design, although I just don't really think it's implemented very well on this keyboard, which is kind of surprising because I reviewed the 8-bit DOE retro mechanical keyboard, which is replicating the NES colorway, and I said that was the coolest looking pre-built keyboard I've ever seen. This is on the opposite end of the spectrum, looking like one of the silliest pieces of crap I put eyes on. I think those keyboards are also the same price, and the other one comes with like massive buttons that you can program to be like a mini Steam Deck, basically. Yeah, this cosmetically and build quality wise, this ain't it. On the bottom, you do have a reflective placard, which looks kind of cool and can work as a little makeup mirror if you want to check your blush levels. I like the QC Pass sticker is underneath the swivelable feet, which by the way do feel good as you have a low and high step option and 4 rubberized feet so you're not slip sliding around. The base itself doesn't feel cheap or flimsy. What makes the overall build quality feel like shit is when you get to typing and realize how much sag, how much flex is in the top section. I've actually never seen this much keyboard flex in my life. For comparison, this is my ROG Azerith over here, which is like a $200+ keyboard, so it's not really comparable, but I'm pushing super hard on these keys, and as you can see, there is no flex on that chassis. It's just that one switch that's getting smashed into the pits of hell. So unlike other pre-built keyboards on the market, which let you choose usually 3 different options for switches, you have the linears, the tactiles, and the clickies. This always comes with the red switches, which are linears. By far are my least favorite of the 3 switches, but you don't have an option right out of the gate for good stock switches, in my opinion, unless you like linears, which, okay, more power to you. Point being, basically just account into the price that you're also going to need a full set of switches, considering this is a full-size keyboard. Also, there is nothing on the manufacturer's website or even floating around online in forums or anything about what actual brand those switches are, although it doesn't matter because, like I mentioned, they are linear and feel like a hot bag of wieners, so I'm going to swap them out for something that's either tactile or clicky on the double. As far as how these are pinned in the board, they are upside down, which does matter for certain switches that have RGB support. It casts the light in the board a little bit better. I've had questions about that. Are they upside down, inverted? Yes, this one is upside down. So the only positive I can say about the switches is the fact that they are hot swappable. The RGB lighting was implemented quite piss poorly in my opinion. This does come down to the fact that it's only coming out of the key caps. There's no additional strips or anything on the board. The way the key switches cast light is pretty piss poor because you can see the individual dots. You don't really get that nice diffused light where you just see, whoa, there's light glowing through my board. You actually see the individual dots or LEDs, which I think looks incredibly tacky. But again, these stock switches are getting swapped out on the double, so the RGB effect will look completely different. Although the board's control of the lights is not great, there's no real modes. It just changes the color and then the speed of how quickly it pulses. And even at its slowest, I found it to be a little bit too fast for my liking, so I'm probably just going to end up turning it off completely. Getting the software or application for the Oz Striker is pretty simple.
Oh, you can call me Oz if you want.
Do I have to?
You can call me Oz Striker.
It's called Nyxi software, and I'm glad that there is a dedicated manufacturer software suite because I have used some of the Keychron keyboards in the past, and they use Vio or IO, sounds like some kind of a water additive, like Mio. It's terrible. It's basically used for, what the hell? Oh, this looks safe. It's a Google Drive. Yeah, that's safe as shit. Let's download it. Okay, we're off to a good start. So I've been sitting here for a couple of, that seems sketchy. I'm gonna do it. So even risking it for the biscuit, putting my computer's buns on the line, I still can't download your Nyxi software application, which is disappointing because from the pictures, it looked really promising, like it would be better than the Vio app, which is for third-party keyboards that do not have a dedicated manufacturer software suite. So they end up using a, hey, you just built a custom. So they use a little program for people that build custom keyboards to be able to control things like the lighting and custom button bindings, things you like to do on a gaming keyboard. And this has a dedicated manufacturer software, but you can only download it through a Google Drive dock, which if you're part of the Google Advanced Protection program, it'll recognize it as a virus. But even if you push through and still try and install it, it still wouldn't install the app. So I can't give you a tour walkthrough as I would like to do, which is unfortunate. The little sound check, which I can't really describe or put into words how throwaway or non-important this part of the review is. You got to understand that every YouTuber is using a different microphone, is in a different room with different acoustics. So unless you're watching the same exact reviewer who never changes his setup, which surprise, surprise is no YouTuber or live streamer, then you don't really have a point of reference of, oh, this is the decibels of the noise floor in the room, and then this is how much louder the caps are. But if you just want to hear what the caps sound like when I'm typing, you're about to. Keep in mind, it's also taking into account things like the noise rejection from this microphone. I'm clickety-clacking on this key. It's pretty loud. It's not actually, I'm not really for real typing or anything. I'm clicking on these keys pretty goddamn loud. Louder than I would ever want to in a real typing situation. This is my third email, Sharon, and probably will not be my last. Okay, and all NYXI products, keyboards, controllers do have a 2-year warranty. There's better pre-built keyboards on the market. For example, the 8BitDo Retro keyboard, which had really good stock switches, also comes with an additional included accessory, which is a really cool thing, and that just oozes swag, which swag style points here is what the striker's trying to go for, but it really fouled it up because you have that gloss section at the top, which came with micro scratches out of the box, and then you have the pixel screen, which I'm sure cut into the build cost quite substantially and is a piss poor feature. There's very limited support as to what you can do with it. You can't really display any computer information. It's just disorienting and a suck on the battery life if you're going wireless. To the pros, if you are going wireless, there is tri-mode connectivity, and I was able to get very far away from my Bluetooth and dongle devices without disconnecting. That was cool. I like the fact that there's kickstand swappable feet. You know, the keyboard's not great when I'm looking for positives or praise, like, well, it's got swivelable feet on the bottom. It does, and I like that to position my wrist. At the end of the day, my opinion on this is if you are going for a full-blown, pre-built, ready-to-run keyboard, there are better options, such as the 8BitDo mechanical that I tested on the channel, or if you want to dabble in the world of pre-built customs that come in a kit with all the parts you need, Amazon has made that very approachable and easy as well, and you'll have a better experience not only being connected with your keyboard when you're done with it all, but it won't feel like the Nyxi when you're typing on it. This keyboard is linked in the description below if you want to check it out, and I will see you, Stallion. Comment section, I almost forgot about it, but you sure as shit didn't. Go ahead and ransack that sucker.
You all saw what happened to Oz out there. I don't want to ever see any of you thinking you're gonna score. You don't score until you score. Until you score. Good attitude, Striker.
Good luck, fellas.
Right. I didn't tell you to leave the game.
I'll see you tomorrow.
If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach in a system as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more stallions and stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.